I get the pleasure of introducing someone who has been a coach and a mentor in my life for about 20 years. I kind of get emotional, which is not normal for me. I grew up in that era where I think it was Sally that said she can't cry or that she was okay to cry in public. I grew up in the generation that it's like you chew your tongue off and you cry in the shower like a grown-ass woman. So it's uncomfortable for me to express that emotion on a public forum like that. So, but I get to introduce Deena for tough discussions, resilient relationships, and maintaining your integrity. So Deena, take it away.
Thanks, Thea. I was a little verklempt about that. Thank you. Love you. Today I wanted to talk about having difficult conversations and maintaining your integrity and your relationships. As I have journeyed through my career, when we're working with women and coaching women, this is one of the things that is one of the most frequently asked questions is how do I? If I'm in a tough situation, what do I do? So picture back or think back to 2007. We were all riding high. It was a wonderful time in our industry. No one could have known in 2008 that things were going to start to come crashing down on us. The company that I was with at the time had decided to enter the world of installed sales. Everybody was doing it. Every major company was doing it, and they seemed to be doing well, making money. So they deployed the Field of Dreams strategy around this, and there was the biggest CapEx expense that I think I've ever seen in all of my years. They bought rolling stock, they bought inventory, they bought the tools, the people they brought on board, and we had directors and assistant directors, and we had this huge hierarchy and this gargantuan infrastructure that I was watching it being built, and I wasn't sure how on earth were we going to support that. So then 2008 hit, and reality started to sink in. So our COO at the time and some of the other leadership team thought that it might be a really good idea to make sure that we could at least get some ROI out of the investment to go to the production builders that were a very large part of our customer portfolio at the time, and go to them directly. At that time in our industry, turnkey framers were the thing. So the turnkey framers were our direct customers. And let me tell you that when I'm not talking about $100,000 a year, I'm talking about millions upon millions of dollars every year. So my concern was that by going to the builders directly and saying, hey, we can frame these, we can build the entire shell of your house, we in essence would be cutting the throats of our framer partners that we had had for years and years. And we're truly a big part of the lifeblood of our company. The COO and leadership, we were all together in a room, and they announced this program. I'd kind of known that it was coming. I'd heard some of the discussions. And I voiced my concerns about this, about what would happen to the customers that we had had a partnership for so many years. And what would happen to that relationship? Would we ever be able to go back when things got better? And I feared that the answer was no, because we all know that in our business that relationships are everything. We do what we say we're going to do. Our integrity matters. Our word matters. So I sat in this meeting with many of the general managers all along the Front Range of Colorado, and the COO announced this initiative, what we were going to be doing. And because those of you who know me know that I'm not exactly a quiet human, I voiced my opinion and did so with what I thought, respect. We had a break. And as I was going down the hall, excuse me, the CEO said, hey, let's talk for just a minute. I said, sure, okay. So we're standing in the hallway outside my office, And he looked at me and he got about this close from my face. And he said, I pay you to do what I tell you to do. And if I want your opinion, I will ask for it. We as women are taught from a very early age to be the peacemakers, to smooth things over, to run from confrontation, to be afraid of conflict. And in that very moment, granted I was a much younger person, now being as mouthy and as I am, I probably would have had a pretty smart response pretty quickly. But at that time in my career and in my life, I didn't know what to say. I froze. And we went back to the meeting, and I didn't say anything else. But I knew in the back of my mind that there had to be a better way to go about this and resolve this dilemma that the company was facing, and it was a very real dilemma. In some cases, it would have been life or death. I will tell you that during that downturn, we started with 73 locations, and at the end of the downturn, we were down to 24. Jason was a part of this, going through this journey with me as well, and I think both of us can say that we closed more facilities and laid more people off than I ever thought would be possible in our lifetime, in our careers. So after this meeting, I went back to my office and I took a few days because clearly I had done something that might have been considered a career-limiting move. And I thought, what do I do? Now, being raised in the household that I was raised in, my dad was in the Navy. You don't cry, you don't give up. I was always told there's no crying in lumber. So I didn't. But I had to figure out a way out of it because I knew that there were people that were depending on us to figure that out. We didn't want to jeopardize the good business and the relationships that we had going. So after about a week, I called the COO, and I asked him if he would mentor me. He was surprised for the phone call. I was surprised that I did it, but I couldn't understand the reaction. So I also knew, even at that age, that the conflict, if we used it right, could lead to a different option. Who here has read Brené Brown or is a fan of Brené Brown? And she speaks a lot about vulnerability. And in the new leadership models that are evolving, vulnerability is a key component to being a good leader, especially with our younger generations coming up. When I first started learning about this word, vulnerability, I kind of thought about it like it was a four-letter word, that it meant that I was weak if I was vulnerable. And that's, in fact, quite the opposite of what it means. I've come to believe that it doesn't mean weakness. It just means that you own your judgments and you own your ability to listen to others, keep an open mind, and be flexible to change. But if you make a judgment about something, make sure that you retain your ability to discern and put critical thinking about it, and don't just make a judgment based on emotion. So what I wanted to say to you today, this will be kind of a short speech. I wanted to tell you the three things that I use when I'm moving towards or moving through a difficult conversation or a confrontation, because it does happen in business, and you do want to retain your integrity. But I would encourage you to run towards conflict. Don't run away from it. Running away from it is just basically taking the ostrich, putting your head in the sand, the ostrich approach to that. And it never resolves anything. And I'm also a big believer that we teach people how to treat us. I want to make sure that that you deploy, when you are in difficult conversations, curiosity instead of jumping to judgment. And being curious and keeping an open mind means asking questions. Anytime I am in the hot seat for something, I will likely ask questions because I want to understand the viewpoint of the other party. And this has been a really hard one for me, is to keep quiet. I see you laughing. This is an aside because, I'm sorry, Russ, I have to share this. Every time, when I'm speaking at these conferences, I see Russ frequently. And it was about 4 or 5 years ago in Austin, and both of us happened to be speaking at this conference. And before I went up on stage, Russ pulls me aside and he says, "Hey, try not to suck." And I just kind of looked at him and I was like, "Dude, really? Is that your way of encouraging me?" It's one of my mentors right there, just in case you didn't know that. But anyhow, and I don't know why, when I was talking about keeping quiet, that I looked at you, and I just had to share that little story. But anyhow, I did. Because I think we as women also taught, as we're smoothing things over and making things better, we're uncomfortable in silence, especially when we're in a relationship or a conversation that is high in conflict. And every fiber of your being is saying, yeah, I really want to punch you in the throat, or I really want to run away. But you can't do that and maintain your integrity either. Just a little bonus note there. But running towards the conflict, keeping your curiosity, and then keeping quiet, letting the other person speak. Because I will tell you, there's a countless number of situations that I have been in when I've been quiet and I let the other person speak. And it's amazing the resolution that comes out of that, simply by letting the other person, they feel heard. They tell you their feelings. Let go of your need to be right. That's something that I have struggled with for a good part of my life. I thought in my early years, just as Jason was telling you some of the stories about me, that winning always meant that I needed to be right. And that's simply not true. It's not true at all. So what happened at the end of that story with the COO? Well, here's what he didn't know. At the time, I was working with a government contractor, and I knew that there was a very large contract that was going to be available from the government. It was building officer housing at 2 of the big Air Force bases in Colorado Springs. It was a multi-million-dollar contract. And not only was it an amazing opportunity, but it also meant that our installed sales team would be able to build this. We would have an opportunity to be able to do this project utilizing the infrastructure that we had already built. So when I asked this gentleman to mentor me, we started the conversations, and as you can imagine, he was a little standoffish, but as I asked the questions and became curious, what I found out was that he was worried, he was afraid, because all of the money that the company had spent to build this was on the line. And I knew that, I understood that, but I did not agree that the way to go about it was to cut another customer segment throat. So I didn't let him know right away what was going on and what opportunity that we had. I wanted to see if I could, because I knew that I was going to need his support. I did not have the autonomy to sign this large of a contract for the company. I needed his support to be able to get it done. So, in the end, I will say that we got to a peaceable relationship. Not sure that we truly liked each other very well, but we respected each other, and that's okay. That's all right. It was a working relationship. So the end of the story was we ended up getting a $40 million contract. It was the biggest contract in the entire company history at the time. It was like 111 years. And we were able to put people to work and keep people working for for a couple of years, even during the economic downturn. But the best part of this story was that we didn't have enough labor to do these contracts and to keep them going at the speed that the government wanted us to go to. So we were able to bring in our framing partners and bring them into and utilize their labor for this project as well. So it had a good outcome at the end. So I just wanted to encourage you that, we talked a little bit about, as we are women, our responsibility in building our careers, creating leadership positions, being prepared to lead. And I will tell you that one of the biggest things that you can do is not run from conflict. Run to it. Own your judgments, show your vulnerability, be open to change. Be curious, keep your curiosity, and keep quiet. I don't care if you have to bite your cheeks while you're having the conversation, because it is really difficult, and I understand that. But maybe change the dynamic and flip the switch just a little bit. So if you get nothing else from what I've spoken about today, is just remember to run towards conflict. Don't run away from it. Thank you. Mm-hmm.